I worked as a tattoo artist in the city until the stranger in my chair shifted into the Alpha King. In a quiet corner of the downtown district, a small tattoo studio glowed warmly, a sanctuary of color and ink amid the gray monotony of the urban night. Inside, Ava worked with steady hands, her brush-like precision guiding the needle across skin as if painting life itself. She had always loved the craft. Each tattoo carried a story, each line a memory frozen in time. Her studio was her kingdom of calm, a world where she could control everything, except perhaps the lives of those who walked in. But tonight, the bell over the door jingled differently. It carried a note of inevitability. A man entered, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes that somehow absorbed the light around him. His eyes were hidden beneath the shadow of a hood, but even so, Ava felt the weight of his gaze. She felt a shiver run down her spine, an unfamiliar mixture of fear and fascination. "Good evening," he said, his voice low, calm, yet commanding. "I need a tattoo." Something unusual. Ava blinked, studying him. There was something magnetic about the stranger. He did not speak much, yet his presence filled the room like a living thing. Most clients were chatty or nervous. This man carried an air of authority that unsettled her. And yet she felt a pull, a quiet curiosity that made her want to understand him. "What kind of design?" she asked, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. He hesitated, then slowly pulled back his sleeve, revealing a forearm as pale as moonlight. There were no marks, no scars, but as he exposed the skin, Ava noticed something odd, a faint shimmer like the surface of water in a dark forest. "I want this," he said, placing a folded piece of parchment on the counter. It bore intricate designs that seemed to twist and turn, shapes that almost moved when she blinked. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Her fingers tingled as she traced the lines. This is incredibly detailed. It would take hours." "I have all the time necessary," he replied. There was no impatience in his voice, only certainty. Ava felt her pulse quicken. She had tattooed difficult designs before, but this felt alive. Her instincts screamed a warning, but another part of her, the part that loved challenge, that craved the extraordinary, whispered encouragement. She gestured for him to sit. "Very well, let's begin." As the needle buzzed to life, Ava worked in silence, focusing entirely on the intricate shapes that seemed almost impossible to recreate. The stranger remained still, his posture unnervingly rigid, yet somehow relaxed at the same time. Hours passed unnoticed. The rain outside had stopped, leaving a quiet, damp calm in the city streets. Ava felt herself drawn into a strange rhythm, her heartbeat syncing with the buzz of the needle and the faint pulse of energy she sensed emanating from the man before her. Then it happened. A subtle shift. The stranger's fingers twitched involuntarily and his eyes, hidden moments ago in shadow, flashed gold for an instant. Ava froze, her hand hovering above the parchment. Her mind raced. Had she imagined it? The air in the room seemed to thrum, a low vibration that pressed against her chest. "I feel it," he murmured, his voice deeper now, resonating with a tone that made her knees weak. "Do you see it?" Ava shook her head, afraid to speak. But her eyes betrayed her. The parchment she had been following now glowed faintly, almost as if it recognized him. Her hands shook, yet she continued, compelled by forces she did not understand. "What are you?" she whispered, more to herself than to him. The stranger smiled, a faint, knowing curve of lips. "Something you are only beginning to understand. Something old, powerful, and bound to this world in ways you cannot yet imagine." Fear clawed at her. He was dangerous. Of that she was certain. But beneath the fear lay a strange excitement, a curiosity that she could not deny. She had always lived in the safe corners of her art, but this was something alive, something real, something extraordinary. Hours bled into the night. The tattoo took shape, each line flowing with an almost mystical energy. Ava could feel it resonate through her fingertips, like the design itself had a heartbeat. She looked at the stranger, expecting him to flinch, to pull away, but he did not. He watched her with eyes that seemed to see everything, even the secret thoughts she had buried in her own mind. Finally, she set the needle down. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner and the faint pulse of energy that still lingered. "You've done more than draw lines," he said softly. "You've awakened it." Ava stared at him, her words caught in her throat. "Awakened what?" He rose slowly, moving toward the light so she could see him fully. And in that moment she realized the truth of what she had sensed all along. He was not entirely human, not in the way anyone else had been. His form shimmered, shifting subtly. The air around him seemed to bend. The ordinary rules of the world did not apply to him. "I am," his voice faltered, almost reluctant, as if he weighed the power of naming himself. "I am a king, though you have never known such things existed." Ava's breath caught. A king, a stranger. A force that seemed both terrifying and alluring. Her instincts screamed to flee, yet her body remained rooted, captivated by the strange energy that radiated from him. She felt a pull, magnetic and undeniable, like the city itself had aligned to draw her closer to him. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, fear laced with awe. All of this," she gestured vaguely at him, the tattoo, the strange pulse in the room. "It's not normal." He shook his head, stepping closer. "Normal is a cage. You, Ava, have always understood something others cannot. You see the edges of the world. You feel the threads that bind it. That is why I came to you." Her pulse raced. How could he know her name? How could he know what she felt? Before she could respond, a sudden shimmer rippled through the room. The stranger's form blurred, shifting as if the very air around him could not contain him. In a flash, his shape solidified into something commanding, alpha-like, with golden eyes that glowed faintly. The change was subtle but undeniable, and it made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The tattoo on her arm reacted. Faint light traced the lines she had just inked, pulsing gently as if alive. Ava gasped, realizing that the design was not just a tattoo, it was a link, a bridge between her world and his. She stammered. What are you doing?" He smiled, a hint of both mischief and sorrow in his expression. "I am showing you what lies beneath. You are no longer just an observer, Ava. You are part of something much greater than your small city life. And soon you will have to choose, stay in your safe world or step into mine." Her heart pounded. She wanted to flee. She wanted to hide. But a part of her, the part that had always sought something beyond ordinary life, wanted to stay, wanted to know him, wanted to understand. The night outside stretched endlessly. Rain had returned, tapping softly against the windows. The city hummed around them, oblivious to the strange shift in the small studio. But Ava knew something had changed. The stranger was not a stranger anymore. He was a force, a presence that had chosen her, and her life as she had known it was over. "I need to understand," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. He reached out, his hand hovering just above hers. "Then you will. But understand this, once you step further, there is no turning back." Ava nodded slowly, heart hammering. Her world was about to expand in ways she could not imagine. And in that moment she realized she did not fear the unknown, not entirely. There was something about him, about the energy, about the connection, that drew her forward. The stranger leaned closer, and for the first time Ava felt a warmth in his golden eyes that was almost human. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will see more. But tonight, rest. You will need your strength for what is coming." She watched him leave, the echo of his presence lingering long after the door closed. And as the city slept, Ava traced her fingers over the tattoo on her arm. The lines pulsed faintly under her skin, alive, whispering secrets she could not yet understand. And deep inside, she knew. Her life, her art, and her heart were now bound to the stranger in the chair. The Alpha King who had appeared from shadows, and yet somehow from her own destiny. The next morning, the city streets were slick with rain. reflecting the soft light of early sun like shards of broken glass. Ava moved through the quiet streets, clutching her coat tighter, her mind still tangled in the events of the night before. The memory of the stranger's golden eyes, the shift in his form, and the glowing tattoo on her arm refused to fade. Every instinct told her this was no ordinary client. Back in her studio, the walls felt smaller somehow, filled with the echoes of last night's energy. She traced her fingers over the tattoo again. Its lines shimmered faintly, almost imperceptibly as though recognizing her touch. Ava shivered. She had never experienced anything like this. Her art had always been alive in a way, imbued with her passion, her care. But this was different. It was alive in a way that was beyond her understanding. Hours passed. The studio remained quiet except for the occasional hum of a passing car outside. Ava tried to focus on other work, cleaning, restocking supplies, but every glance at her arm reminded her of the stranger. And then the bell over the door jingled. He had returned. Ava's breath caught, though she tried to remain calm. He entered as if he belonged in the shadows, even in the light of day. His presence filled the room immediately, heavy and commanding, yet somehow familiar, like an echo of something long forgotten. "You came back," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't expect." "I told you," he interrupted softly, his voice carrying the same weight as yesterday. "I have all the time necessary." He removed his coat, revealing his form again, ordinary yet extraordinary at the same time. There was a subtle aura surrounding him, a quiet intensity that made her heart race. He moved with the ease of someone who owned every step he took, yet he seemed aware of her gaze, careful not to overwhelm her. Ava felt a strange combination of fear and curiosity. "Why are you here?" she asked, her hands nervously adjusting the sleeves of her shirt. "To see what you can do," he said simply, "and perhaps to show you a world you have not yet known." She blinked, unsure how to respond. A world she had not yet known. Her life had been ordinary, her days spent in ink and sketches, and now suddenly she was being drawn into something immense, something beyond comprehension. He gestured to the chair, and despite her nerves, she found herself nodding. "Sit," she said quietly, though her hands trembled. As she prepared her tools, he spoke again. "You felt it last night, the connection." I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "How could a tattoo, how could I feel this?" "You are not just an artist," he said, his golden eyes meeting hers. "You are someone who can see the threads that bind life and energy. Your touch awakens what has slept for centuries." Ava swallowed hard, trying to process his words. Her art had always been her way of understanding the world, of connecting with people. But this was different. This was as if the very life around her was responding to her touch. She glanced down at the parchment he had brought last night. The designs were still etched clearly in her mind, but now they seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She placed her hand on the table and felt a faint warmth radiate from the paper. "You're changing things," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to control this." He leaned closer, his presence both commanding and gentle. "Control comes with understanding, and understanding comes with time." For hours they worked together in silence. The needle buzzed softly as Ava traced lines that seemed to move under her touch. The man remained still, his eyes closed at times, as if he could sense the energy flowing through the ink. And with each pass, Ava felt a growing awareness of something larger, something ancient, hidden beneath the ordinary world she had always known. "Do you feel it?" he asked suddenly, his voice low and almost urgent. "The way the energy responds." Ava nodded, unsure how to put her feelings into words. It was as if the ink had become a bridge, connecting her to him, to something she couldn't yet name. Every pulse of the tattoo seemed to echo in the room, intertwining with the quiet hum of the city outside. "I feel something," she admitted. "Like it's alive, like it's listening." He smiled faintly, a rare softness in his expression. It is alive, and it is listening just as I am. The moment hung between them, heavy with tension and unspoken words. Ava realized, with a strange mix of fear and longing, that she was drawn to him, not just because of who he was, but because of what he made her feel. For the first time, she sensed that her own life, her own heart, was part of something larger than herself. Hours passed unnoticed. The city outside seemed distant, irrelevant. Ava and the stranger existed only in the studio, in the space where ink, energy, and presence intertwined. Finally, she leaned back, wiping her hands on a cloth. The tattoo was complete. And yet, as she looked at it, she realized it was no longer just a design. The lines seemed to shimmer faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath her skin. He opened his eyes, golden light catching the edge of the window. "It is perfect," he said. "And yet it is only the beginning." Ava felt a chill. "The beginning of what?" He rose slowly, moving closer. "Of a world you will soon see, a world of power, secrets, and danger, and of choices that will test not only your courage but your heart." She swallowed hard, unsure if she was ready for what he hinted at. Her life had been ordinary, safe, predictable, and now she was standing on the edge of something extraordinary. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered again. All of this," she gestured to the tattoo, to the air around him, to the energy she could feel pulsing in the room. "It's not normal." "Normal is a cage," he said, stepping closer. "And you, Ava, are not meant to live within cages. You see more than others. You feel more than others. That is why you were chosen." "Chosen?" she echoed, fear and awe mingling in her voice. "By who? For what?" He hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "By forces older than your city, older than your world. Forces that require balance, loyalty, and understanding. And you can help maintain that balance." Ava's mind spun. She had always thought her life revolved around ink, sketches, and the quiet rhythm of her studio. Now she was being told that she had a role in something vast, something incomprehensible. "I don't know if I can," she said quietly, almost pleading. "I'm just me. I'm a tattoo artist, that's all." He shook his head gently. "You are more than that. You have always been more. And soon you will understand why." The day passed in a blur. Ava felt both exhilarated and terrified. Every glance at the tattoo reminded her of the night before, and of the stranger who had shifted into something magnificent, something dangerous. She tried to focus on ordinary tasks, but her thoughts kept drifting back to him, to the pull she could not resist. That evening he returned once more. The city streets were quieter now, the rain having left everything slick and reflective. Ava felt her pulse quicken as he stepped into the studio. "You are ready," he said, his golden eyes meeting hers. "Ready to see more, to understand more." She swallowed, her hands shaking slightly. I don't know what to expect." He smiled faintly, a mixture of reassurance and warning. "Expect the truth. The world you have known is only a shadow, and the choices you make will shape not only your destiny but the fate of many." Ava felt a strange thrill, despite the fear that gripped her. She had always been drawn to the extraordinary, to the unknown. And now it was here, standing in her studio, waiting for her to step forward. "You will come with me," he said, "but understand this. Once you leave this room, once you step into the world beyond, there is no turning back." Her heart pounded. Fear whispered at the edges of her mind, warning her to run. But another voice, quieter but insistent, urged her forward. Curiosity, courage, a strange longing she could not name. "I'll go," she said finally, her voice trembling but firm. "I need to understand." He nodded, satisfaction and relief mingling in his gaze. "Then come. And see the world as it truly is." As they left the studio, the city seemed ordinary once more, but Ava knew better. Something had shifted. The stranger, the tattoo, the strange pulse in the air, all of it had changed her life forever. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, unseen eyes watched. Forces older than the city, older than time itself, were aware of her choice. The path she had stepped onto was fraught with danger, but also with possibilities she had never imagined. Ava took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the tattoo beneath her skin. She had crossed the threshold. There was no turning back. Ava had never imagined a world like this. The city had been her entire life: lights, rain, concrete, the smell of ink and coffee. But now, walking beside the stranger, she felt as if the streets themselves had peeled away, revealing something hidden beneath the surface of her reality. The air was different here, heavier yet charged with energy. She could sense the pulse of life, old and vast, that moved beyond the ordinary rules she had always known. He led her through twisting alleyways that seemed ordinary at first, but as they walked, shadows shifted unnaturally, stretching and bending in impossible ways. At the end of one narrow street, a faint glow emanated from an archway hidden behind vines and crumbling stone. The stranger paused. "This is the gate," he said, his voice steady but tinged with reverence. "Beyond this is my world. And once you cross, your life will no longer belong solely to you." Ava swallowed, her hand brushing against the tattoo on her arm. It pulsed faintly, as if sensing what was ahead. Her heart raced, not with fear exactly, but with the mixture of awe and anticipation that comes when one stands at the edge of the unknown. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he extended his hand. "Step forward and you will see, but remember, your courage will be tested. Your choices will shape more than your own fate." Ava hesitated, then grasped his hand. The world around them shifted instantly. The alleyway dissolved like mist, replaced by a landscape that defied her imagination. Towers of black stone rose into a sky streaked with crimson and gold. Rivers of light wound through the land like threads of energy. And everywhere she looked, the air seemed to hum, alive with power. She gasped, This isn't real." "It is," he said quietly. "More real than the city you left behind, and more dangerous." They moved through the kingdom, and Ava's senses were overwhelmed. She felt the weight of centuries in the stones beneath her feet. Statues of long-dead rulers stared down at them with eyes that seemed to follow her. Every shadow held a presence. Every sound carried a whisper of memory and warning. "This is your kingdom?" she asked finally, struggling to comprehend the scale and depth of the world around her. He nodded. "And yet it is only a fragment. My duty is to protect it, to maintain the balance. But it is not mine alone. It belongs to the people, to the forces that guide it, and in ways I cannot yet explain to you as well." Ava felt a shiver. To be part of this world, to be drawn into its power, was both thrilling and terrifying. She looked down at her tattoo, which pulsed in rhythm with the energy of the kingdom. Somehow it connected her to everything here. Her art, her hands had become more than a craft. They had become a bridge. As they walked, he explained the delicate balance of his realm. "Every action has consequences," he said. "Every choice ripples through the land. There are those who would seek to control it through fear, others through deception. And I am the one who must hold it together." Ava listened, her mind racing. The weight of his responsibility was staggering, and yet, beneath it, she glimpsed a vulnerability. He carried it carefully, hidden behind the aura of authority, but she could see it in the way his shoulders tensed when he spoke of betrayal, the slight falter in his voice when he mentioned past losses. "You fear something," she said quietly, "even though you are powerful." He looked at her, golden eyes flickering. "Power is not freedom. It is responsibility, and responsibility can be a prison. I fear losing those I care for, even when I cannot show it. That is why I keep people at a distance." Ava's heart ached. She understood in a way she never had before. She had always protected herself through solitude, through focus on her art. And now she saw that even kings, even powerful beings, carried fear and longing. They arrived at a palace carved from black stone, its towers reaching toward the sky like dark fingers. The gates opened silently before them, and a sense of history and authority pressed down on Ava. She could feel the weight of generations, of victories and losses, of power earned and betrayed. Inside, the halls were vast and shadowed. Servants moved with quiet efficiency, their eyes flicking to the stranger with a mixture of respect and caution. Ava noticed the subtle hierarchy in the way they bowed, the way they whispered. This was a kingdom alive with loyalty and tension, and she had stepped into its heart. He led her to a chamber that overlooked the central courtyard. From there she could see the palace gardens, fountains that shimmered with light and warriors training with precision and grace. The kingdom was alive, vibrant, and yet threaded with danger. "You must understand," he said, turning to her, "that being here changes everything. You are no longer merely a visitor, you have a role to play, and that role may demand courage you do not yet know you possess." Ava swallowed. "I don't even know what that role is." He approached, and for a moment he seemed less like a king and more like a man who bore the weight of centuries yet was capable of gentleness. "You will learn, slowly, but know this, I trust you more than I trust many, and I need you to trust me in return." She looked at him, uncertainty and longing swirling in her chest. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to step fully into this world. And yet, fear tugged at the edges of her resolve. Before she could speak, a commotion erupted in the courtyard. Guards shouted, and Ava felt a ripple of tension flow through the palace. The stranger moved instantly, golden eyes narrowing. She had never seen him so commanding, so alive with authority. "They are testing us," he said, his voice sharp. "A threat from outside or from within." Ava's pulse quickened. What do we do?" "We face it," he said simply. "Together." She watched as he moved with a fluid, lethal grace, directing warriors, positioning guards, issuing commands that seemed to bend the space itself to his will. Ava realized that she had underestimated the depth of his power. This was not just authority. It was command over life, over loyalty, over forces she could not begin to understand. And yet, even in the midst of battle, she sensed a flicker of fear, a trace of doubt. The weight of responsibility was heavy, and he bore it alone most of the time. She wanted to reach out, to offer some comfort, some connection, but she was unsure how. As the threat subsided, she approached him cautiously. "You carry so much," she said softly. "I don't know how you do it." He looked at her, golden eyes softer now, and for a moment the Alpha King vanished, leaving only a man who seemed weary, vulnerable. "I do what I must," he said, "but even the strongest can falter. Even kings can fear failure." Ava's hand brushed against his arm lightly, almost instinctively. "You don't have to bear it alone," she said. He froze slightly, the weight of her words settling over him like a blanket. "Perhaps," he murmured. "But I have for so long, I have forgotten what it means to let someone close." The room was quiet, save for the distant sounds of the kingdom outside. Ava's heart thumped in her chest. She wanted to reach out further, to bridge the gap between them, but she also knew the danger. The palace was alive with watchers, and every bond she formed here could be scrutinized, tested, and challenged. Yet in that brief, fragile moment, she felt a connection stronger than fear. A bond that went beyond the palace walls, beyond the tattoo on her arm, beyond the ordinary life she had left behind. This is only the beginning, isn't it?" she whispered. He nodded, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Yes. The real challenges are yet to come, and soon you will have to choose where your loyalty lies and how far you are willing to go to protect what we both care for." Ava understood. This world was beautiful and dangerous, and she had already stepped onto a path she could not leave. Her art, her courage, her heart, they would all be tested. And the stranger, the king, was not just a figure of authority, but a man with his own burdens, his own fears, and his own capacity for redemption. As night fell, the palace shifted into quiet, shadowed grandeur. Ava stood by the balcony, looking out over the kingdom, feeling the pulse of power beneath her feet. The tattoo on her arm glowed faintly in the moonlight, a living reminder of the bond she shared with the stranger, the Alpha King. Somewhere in the distance she sensed movement, a shadowed figure, watching, waiting. Unseen eyes were aware of her presence, of the connection forming between artist and king. And Ava knew, with a certainty that made her chest tighten, that the coming days would challenge everything she had ever known about courage, love, and destiny. She turned to him, the Alpha King, the stranger who had become both guide and enigma. "I'll face it," she said quietly. "Whatever comes next, I'll face it." He nodded, a rare softness in his expression. "And I will stand beside you. But remember, this world does not forgive mistakes easily, and the choices we make will echo for years to come." Ava took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the tattoo beneath her skin. She had crossed thresholds she had never imagined, and the weight of the kingdom, of the bond between them, rested on her shoulders as well. The night wind whispered through the palace halls, carrying with it the promise of danger, discovery, and the fragile beginnings of a bond that could change both of their lives forever. The palace was quiet now, but Ava could feel the tension in the air. Every shadow seemed alive, every corridor a reminder that danger had not left. The kingdom itself held its breath, as if aware of the stakes that had settled over its rulers and protectors. Ava traced the tattoo on her arm, its faint pulse like a heartbeat of its own. She understood now, it was more than ink. It was a bridge, a connection to the Alpha King, to the kingdom, to forces she could scarcely imagine. The stranger, the king, stood nearby, his golden eyes watching her with an intensity that both reassured and unsettled her. He carried the weight of his throne and his people, yet in this moment he was here, present with her. "You've learned much," he said quietly, "and yet the real test comes tonight." Ava nodded. She had already faced wonders and terrors beyond her imagining, and yet a part of her felt unprepared. She looked at him. "What is it? What must we do?" He took a deep breath as though steeling himself. "The curse that has lingered over my family for generations is stirring. It seeks to claim what is connected to me, and that includes you." A shiver ran through Ava. She had sensed shadows watching her, unseen presences in the palace, but she had not imagined a curse of such magnitude. Her tattoo pulsed, almost urgently, under her skin. She could feel it responding to the invisible threat, as if it knew what was coming. "Then we face it," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "Together." He looked at her, a mixture of admiration and concern in his gaze. "You are braver than you know. But bravery alone is not enough. We need cunning, precision, and trust." Ava's pulse quickened. Trust was difficult. She had left behind her ordinary world and placed herself in the hands of someone extraordinary, someone who held power over life and death. Yet she also knew that without trust, they could not survive the trials ahead. As night fell, the palace seemed to transform. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and a cold wind whispered through the corridors. Ava and the king moved together, guided by instincts and an unspoken understanding. The tattoo on her arm pulsed stronger, a living map of the magic around them. They reached the inner sanctum of the palace, where the curse had been bound centuries ago. Ancient symbols were carved into the stone walls, and Ava could feel the residue of old power lingering in the air. Her hands tingled as she traced the carvings, sensing the energy that had waited for centuries to awaken. "The curse," the king said softly, "feeds on fear, on doubt. We must face it with clarity and courage. Your tattoo, your gift, it is the key." Ava swallowed. Her art had always been a form of expression, a way to understand the world. But now it was a weapon, a tool to protect life itself. She touched her tattoo, feeling the energy flow through her fingers, connecting her to the palace, to the king, to the invisible forces around them. A sudden ripple of darkness surged through the room. The shadows twisted, forming shapes that were both human and not, their eyes glowing with malice. Ava felt a cold pressure on her chest, a weight that threatened to crush her resolve. "Steady," the king said, moving beside her. Focus on the bond between us, on the strength we share. Ava closed her eyes and drew a deep breath. She concentrated on the tattoo, on the lines she had inked, on the pulse beneath her skin. Slowly, the shadows recoiled, as if recognizing her power and the connection it represented. The room glowed faintly, the energy of her art combining with the king's presence, creating a shield against the encroaching darkness. The shadows surged again, more forcefully, striking at the bond they shared. Ava felt fear clawing at her heart, but she forced herself to focus. Each line of the tattoo seemed to respond, glowing brighter, forming patterns that repelled the curse. She opened her eyes and saw the king moving with a fluid grace, countering the shadows with both skill and authority. Together, they were a force neither ordinary nor easily broken. "You're doing it," the king said, his voice carrying both awe and encouragement. "Hold on, Ava. Trust yourself." Her pulse raced, but she felt the energy of the room, the heartbeat of the palace, the connection of the tattoo, and the presence of the king beside her. Slowly, the shadows began to dissipate, their forms breaking apart into harmless wisps of smoke. For a moment, silence settled over the sanctum. Ava leaned against the wall, trembling with exhaustion, her hands still tracing the lines of the tattoo. The king stood beside her, golden eyes soft and almost human in their warmth. "You were magnificent," he said quietly. "Your courage, your focus, it saved us." Ava shook her head. "No, we did it together. I couldn't have, not without you." He studied her, and for a long moment there was a vulnerability in his gaze that he rarely allowed anyone to see. "I have carried this weight for so long, thinking I must face it alone. But tonight, you reminded me that even kings need allies, and sometimes even a king needs someone to share his burdens." Ava's chest tightened. She understood now that he had lived in solitude, protecting the kingdom while keeping his heart locked away. And yet, here he was, allowing her a place beside him, not just as an observer but as a partner in battle, in trust, in destiny. Hours later, the sanctum was quiet once more. The curse had been contained, neutralized by the combination of Ava's art and the king's power. The palace seemed to exhale, the tension lifting like mist in the morning sun. Ava and the king returned to the balcony overlooking the kingdom. The city and the palace lights mingled, and she could see the vastness of the realm that had been hidden from her before. It was beautiful, alive, and dangerous in ways she had never imagined. "You've changed everything," the king said softly. "Not just tonight, but for all time. Your presence, your courage, it has altered the course of this kingdom." Ava looked down at her tattoo, the lines glowing faintly in the moonlight. "I never imagined any of this. I was just an artist, a person who worked with ink. And now," her voice faltered, "now I feel like I belong here somehow, as if this was always meant to be." He reached for her hand, and this time the connection was more than mere touch, it was a recognition, a bond forged in courage, trust, and shared destiny. "Perhaps it was always meant to be," he said, his golden eyes locking with hers. "And perhaps this is only the beginning of what we can achieve together." Ava felt her heart swell, a mixture of awe, relief, and longing. She had stepped into a world she could not have imagined, faced dangers beyond comprehension, and discovered a strength within herself she had never known. And in doing so, she had earned not only the respect of a king but a place by his side. The night stretched on, quiet and serene now, yet alive with the memory of what had passed. Ava and the king remained on the balcony, the kingdom sprawling below them, a living testament to power, courage, and the delicate balance of trust. "You've saved more than the kingdom tonight," Ava whispered, her fingers brushing his. "You've saved me too." He smiled faintly, a softness that seemed almost human breaking through the weight of his authority. "And you've saved me, Ava. Perhaps I needed you more than I knew." The bond between them, once tentative and mysterious, had solidified into something undeniable. Their hearts, their courage, their trust, they were intertwined now, bound by ink, blood, and shared experience. And though the kingdom still held dangers and unseen forces still lingered, they would face them together. Ava traced the tattoo on her arm one last time that night, feeling its pulse in harmony with the world around her. The artist and the Alpha King, once strangers, now partners, now bound by destiny, stood side by side, ready for whatever the future might bring. The palace wind whispered through the corridors, carrying with it the promise of new challenges, new revelations, and the fragile yet enduring beginnings of a love forged in courage, trust, and the extraordinary. Ava knew one thing with certainty: her life would never be ordinary again. She had stepped into a world of kings, curses, and power beyond imagination, and she had discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. And with the Alpha King beside her, she understood that they could face anything together. The city below slept unaware, but above its rooftops, in the palace and the shadowed kingdom beyond, a story of redemption, courage, and love had begun. And while tomorrow would bring new trials, tonight was theirs, quiet, victorious, and unbreakable.